1 out of every 15 people in America have had an out-of-body experience by the time that they have died. Good evening, and welcome to Beyond the Black. I'm your host for this program, Dr. Heimlich Maneuver, and these are my guests for tonight. Mrs. Marion Gwidler, Mr. Freddie Gelwell, Mrs. Beatrice Wistenmeiser. All have had an out-of-body experiences, and they are here to describe them tonight. We'll start with you, Mrs. Gwidler.
Well, it happened one night while I was sleeping. I remember tossing and turning a lot, and then falling as if I were floating in an endless chasm, and then all of a sudden I felt a sudden jolt all over my entire body, and my eyes opened to the seething black of night, and then I felt this throbbing in my skull, this cold, sharp pain at my back, and then I was groping blindly in the darkness, and all of a sudden my eyes were filled with this brilliant light. My husband had turned on the table lamp on the nightstand. He asked me what I was doing on the floor, and I told him what had happened, and then we went back to sleep.
In other words, you fell out of bed, right?
Well, that's it. Doctor, you solved the mystery.
How about you, Mr. Gelwell? What's your story?
Well, I was out in a cornfield harvesting mice when all of a sudden I see these lights up in the sky. And first I thought it was Ma bringing me my supper, but it turned out to be one of them, what you call, unidentified flying objectoids. Well, it landed about 25 meters away from me, and I could see them picking and grinning, pointing and laughing, and they shot this strange ray at me, and it turned my skin all weird. Anyway, they took my mice and scrammed, and ever since then I've been a little disoriented, and I don't like eating mice no more, neither.
Well, I see, but what you seem to be describing is not an out-of-body experience, but rather a UFO encounter.
Well, yeah.
Well, I think what you want is the UFO encounter show next door in Studio 4B.
Yep. Well, thanks.
Sure. Well, how about you, Mrs. Wistenmeiser?
Well, it all started when I was in OR having my left ventricle stitched, when all of a sudden I just started floating around the operating room, and I could hear the doctors crying out, "Oh no, we're losing her." I turned and found myself suspended in a tunnel, suspended high above a supermarket, and I noticed they were having a sale on pot roast, so I decided to go in. But the funny thing was, when I stepped on the little black mat, the door would not open, but I went through the door anyways, and I went straight back to the meat department, and I've got a cart, and I noticed there were no prices on any of the meat, so I started putting them in the cart, and it was great. I was getting everything for free, and then I felt a sudden jolt, and I heard the doctors, they were saying, "Hey, she's coming around."
So you were back in your body then?
Well, yes, I was, but I wasn't altogether happy because I was alive, but I didn't get to keep any of the great meats I got at that great supermarket on the other side.
Unfortunate. Well, thank you, Mrs. Wistenmeiser. And thank you in the audience for tuning in. Stay tuned next week when we look into the mystic secrets of the albino, the pale, pink-eyed people. Until then, good night.